Bay Hill News Network is an internet radio. We are affiliate with Fun City Radio USA, Cancardi Radio, and Success Radio Canada and Blaze Nation Media Group. You can find Bay Hill News Network at www.bayhillnews.net.
www.bayhillnews.net is the parent body of Bay Hill News Network. We do Facebook Live for church service, funeral service, lecture, sporting activity. For more, contact at bayhillnewsnetwork@gmail.com or call 1784-529-8340.
We at BayHillNews.net are doing our part in helping fans and followers of our network. For example, we went up to Sandy Bay and helped with the cleaning of houses inside, outside, and the roofs. We want to do more. We can do more if you help us to help others. Kindly make your donation to Noel and Marvin Thomas at 1-784-496-4805. That's 1-784-496-4805 or Montgomery Cupid at 1-784-529-8340. That's 1-784-529-8340. Thanks for your support.
On April the 9th, 2021, La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines violently erupted, and the words of Black Stalin came flowing true.
So our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember.
My name is Jim Lewis, President of St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association, Toronto, Inc., and I encourage you to donate generously.
I love you, St. Vincent, me sweet little island, St. Vincent.
Ship your barrels and household effects to St. Vincent and the Grenadines with SVG Direct. Jumbo barrels, $70, medium, $60, and small, $50. We ship anything, name it, we ship it. Vehicles and more. Local agent, Adams Customs and Shipping Agency. 3rd floor, Baines Building, Kingstown, SVG. Telephone 1784-458-1328. In Canada, contact Michael 647-569-3285. Jambi 647-657-7362. Remember, it's free pickup at your convenience 7 days per week anywhere in the Greater Toronto area with SVG Great News. Spectra Plus is now rolling out internet and TV services in St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yes, better service and better prices from the new and improved Spectra Plus. Spectra Plus TV plans for $59.99 per month, VAT included. Adult TV 3 channels plus $29.99. For more information, call 1-784-534-2551 or 1-784-532-2501. Fast, reliable broadband and television services for your home or business. Spectra Plus TV, internet, better.
Now with ice cold local juices to go with our rich and tasty authentic Vincentian meals made affordable, it's the award-winning Phoenix Kitchen, open 7 days with extended hours on Friday and Saturday. Juices included Marby, lemon lime, passion fruit, bell apple, golden apple, cherry, mango, Marby, linseed, carrot, beetroot, fruit punch, and sea moss. For further information, call 455-1280. That's right, a bigger meal awaits you now with fresh, cold local juices. Phoenix Kitchen. Let the phoenix arise in you.
Looking for a place to relax with natural cool breeze and friendly surroundings? Then check the Bay Hill Tree Bar, located at Bay Hill Cane Garden. We have everything a bar will have. We also sell Shell 20-pound cooking gas at the Bay Hill Tree Bar.
Nice Radio's Callaloo presents Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio first aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. with repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. Remember, you can always catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph. Today, dear friends, is Saturday. It is the 8th day of May 2021. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of your favorite program, Just Another Look. During this week, we got the news that the status of the La Soufrière volcano has been moved from red to orange. That is to say, that as far as the seismologists are concerned, the threat level has been significantly reduced. It does not by any stretch of the imagination mean that we are out of the woods completely. But it does suggest that at this time, the threat level is much less than it was when we issued the evacuation order. But interestingly, while we have been told that, we are also aware that one of the more sensitive pieces of equipment that would have been at the Soufrière volcano itself, that was destroyed. We have not heard of its replacement, but we know that was destroyed. And therefore the precise readings that we were getting prior to the destruction of that piece of equipment is not necessarily as readily available to us. We hope that in the coming days, we will hear of some course of action relative to the replacement of that particular piece of sensitive equipment that provided the Seismic Research Unit with so much information in the lead up to the actual explosive eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. But the news that the threat level has been reduced from red to orange for Vincentians, whether at home or abroad, that is like music to their ears. They have heard the sound of music. Because the seismologists have determined that it is all right at this stage to lower the threat level. And so one has to understand that it allows Vincentians to breathe that much easier, especially since this will eventually mean ultimately this dismantling of some shelters. This would mean an end to a life essentially without privacy for many of our people. And for many, many others, finally, an end to the Gonzales Robertson Daily Show. You know, it's interesting because some personalities seem to enjoy those kinds of things. But people would much have been better served if they had allowed a daily briefing from Robertson exposed to the national media. But of course, the Prime Minister had, or appeared to have had, different ideas. But we continue to point an accusing finger at both of them, the Prime Minister, as well as the Seismic Research Center in Trinidad and Tobago. They have a lot to account for. And one would hope that when the dust settles, when things, if they ever do, come back to normal, that they will be held to account. Not so long ago, dear friends, after having some of its representatives in this country, SEDIMA, the Regional Disaster Management Organization, reminded us all that while shelters are useful in times of disaster, shelters are essentially designed at best as a temporary measure. It is not intended that people are placed to live in shelters ad infinitum, without an end in sight. And they made that point not long after arriving here, after the explosive eruption of La Soufrière volcano. They made it clear that consideration has to be given very quickly to where those people who are housed in shelters will go to live. Because the living conditions in shelters, many of which are schools, have never been designed to replace people's homes. The amenities are not necessarily what is required for the long term, and as one official put it, a classroom, no matter how much we try to prepare it, does not offer the privacy that people should have as human beings, with their dignity as human beings always protected. So we do hope that this matter will be addressed sooner rather than later. But the problem of homes to go to is greatest for those who reside in areas that are now being deemed inappropriate for housing, given the latest spate of volcanic eruptions of the La Soufrière volcano. In assessing the damage, even peripherally, it does appear that it may be wise to not have homes built in certain areas, particularly if the volcano will continue to erupt periodically, as we have witnessed, because the last eruption was in 1979. So if a pattern can be determined, however difficult that may be, it may want to suggest that we not have people live in the quote-unquote danger zone, and perhaps we leave that area for agriculture in a structured way, knowing that should a volcanic eruption take place again, that yes, that segment of our agriculture industry will suffer immense damage, but at least there would not be people's homes that are lost. But what is clear to us is that in looking back at the impact of the volcano, we can also understand what we at Just Another Look have labeled the absence of planning by the administration that we now have. And it is that absence of planning, which we will address later in this program, that absence of planning that now has the government at its wit's end, trying to find locations, appropriate locations, for those who would need homes away from the red zone. And of course, that absence of planning and a certain stubbornness allows us to understand that it was ridiculous to have constructed the modern medical center in Georgetown, where it is currently located. that will continue to be an issue. The millions of dollars spent on that institution should not have been utilized to locate it there. There are other areas that they could have considered locating it. They could have considered the Diamond area. They could have considered other areas in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But one is bothered by the way our politicians behave, and one wonders whether it was designed to enhance the political leader's image in his own constituency. Because prime ministers and presidents tend to do that, to ensure and impress upon the people whom they represent at a constituency level the extent to which their love, quote unquote, for them allows them to bring more facilities, more job opportunities in their area. But when you are so close to an active volcano, you wonder about the propriety, the appropriateness of making that kind of decision. You see, at the time of the project being introduced, Daniel Cummins in particular highlighted the challenges that the institution would face given its proximity to the red zone. But of course, the authorities and the Prime Minister himself defended the decision, went ahead and did it. And we know how long it took to complete. But in short order, we had to be rushing all over the place to remove sensitive equipment from that facility during the evacuation. Life under the threat of La Soufrière in full-blown activity is in and of itself a most harrowing experience. That despite the several months of warning of an imminent threat of an explosive eruption, we were essentially underprepared as we are understanding it now after the fact, remains one of the greater blemishes on the ruling Unity Labour Party, to say nothing of NEMO and our crisis management capability. You see, one of the things that the government and its leadership seem to think it is good at doing is putting a spin on things. You cannot be objective in your analysis of anything in this country undertaken by the Unity Labour Party, because they seem incapable. And it's surprising for someone like Dr. Gonzalez, who is supposed to be an academic. They seem incapable of distinguishing the message from the messenger. And for him personally, it appears almost impossible for him to distinguish between his academic training and his political desires and political behavior. Not every criticism is intended to be taken personally or as an affront to your political approach. There are people, you're not the only one, Doc, that has an interest in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Vincentians. But the way you often behave once people have engaged in any sort of critical thinking seems to suggest that it's an affront to you. And so we get all these cryptic remarks, all these quote-unquote political innuendos coming from you the minute people seem to suggest something that you may have wanted done or did that they are able to criticize. That's a problem for you, apparently. That is part of the problem for St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a whole. Because objective analysis suggests that we were not as prepared for an explosive eruption as we ought to have been. Yes, we were scarce on information between middle November and the latter part of December. We were short on information. And just another look is suggesting that the Prime Minister, as leader of this country, the government of this country, and the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center combined owe the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines a tremendous apology for that information flow problematic between the 16th of November and the 29th of December. You all owe Vincentians an apology. But there will always be a political spin, and in fact, throughout the period of the evacuation and the volcanic eruptions, the explosive eruptions, we know that the Gonzales-Robertson Daily Show avoided that kind of issue, and perhaps that's one of the reasons why he really didn't want journalists present. Because when you are having your press huggings, and people ask questions, you like to go back before you come forward. But in the case of the Soufrière eruption, if we go back, we'll find that we did not get the information we should have gotten from as early as the 16th of November. You and the Seismic Research Unit are to be held responsible for that. But we've recognized too that today, several weeks after the explosive eruption of the 9th of April 2021, many people are more willing to provide whatever assistance they are offering to Vincentians through the Red Cross than through NEMO. Because many of them have understood NEMO to be a political entity. That's how they see it. Many Vincentians at home and abroad have in their own analyses concluded that NEMO is a political institution. And people are fearful of political institutions in this country because they believe that there is too much political partisanship at work. Many people have been critical of this government for the absence of what they perceive for what they perceive to be the absence of the consistent application of meritocratic principles in terms of appointments. And so many people are bothered. And the truth will eventually come out, the whole truth will come out. Whether you like it or not, the whole truth will come out. But many people have lost confidence in NEMO. And they recognize that the Red Cross adheres very rigidly to its international mandate and that its approach is consistent with that mandate. NEMO, they are fearful, appears to be responsive to the political mandates of those who run this country. And people are not particularly comfortable with that. That is part of our problem. It is evident that even in the midst of crises, and God knows that we've had our full share of crises over the past year, as a society, Vincentians are still subject to leadership of a type that appears far more concerned with the overinflated egos of the ministers and senators and others, and their eagerness to be the recipient of accolades, to be the one seen as having done this or having done that. You see some of the officials take up water boots and appear to be doing things in the midst of the flood, when you know they're not accustomed to that. So they look rather clumsy, but hey, say what? It's impressive. You give the impression that you care. You give the impression that you love. But it is about profiling. It is about accolades, more so than the enhancement of the human condition of Vincentians. And this is a sad indictment of what our society has become. Hopefully, we have learned some invaluable lessons from this round of Soufri's behavior. We have had a taste of what the Caribbean can achieve when there is genuine unity of purpose amongst its peoples. Not the governments now, not the government, amongst its peoples. That's one of the most important lessons that we have learned. What the Caribbean can achieve when there is genuine unity of purpose amongst its peoples. This as opposed to the politicians doing what they think is best. We are a very resilient people. And again, once we are left without political interference. Once the politicians stay behind, once the politicians are not the ones seeking to determine what is in our best interest individually and collectively, we prove ourselves to be a very resilient people looking out for each other. Vincentians have shown, without a doubt, that in a disaster, it is possible for us to live together. We have shown that in a disaster, it is possible for us to work together. We have shown that in a disaster, it is possible for us to look out for each other without having the politicians climbing over each other crabs in a barrel, jostling to take credit for whatever assistance they bring to those in need. We have shown our capacity to do things as a people. And we pray, God, that if there is one thing that we must all take away from this year's Soufri experience, it is that as a people, we can survive in the midst of danger. And as so many have done, stand on principle regarding an issue as important as vaccination. Remember, the sick politicians who saw an opportunity and who attempted to impose vaccinations on poor people before they could get a place in a shelter in the midst of a disaster should hang their heads in shame. In another society, they might have asked them to resign. In yet other societies, they might have moved them out of office automatically. But not here. There is no shame. There is no shame among our politicians. That is not a characteristic feature of politics in St. Vincent and Grenadines. Shame. So in the midst of a disaster, you had some sick politicians who saw a window of opportunity to try to impose vaccination on poor people who had resisted for one reason or another vaccinations. those politicians should hang their heads in shame. We know they will not, and we know they will not resign. They should learn from those very poor people who, after being told this is not a drill, persisted, took up their belongings, and headed for the side of the road because they preferred to be on the side of the road rather than inside of a shelter if the condition for getting into the shelter in a disaster was that you have to be vaccinated. They chose that option rather than allowing themselves to be forced, to be coerced into doing something that they were not yet prepared to do. If you messed up in terms of the messaging when COVID-19 pandemic started, if you messed up in terms of the messaging with regard to whether we had community spread as opposed to clusters, if you messed up in respect of the messaging with regard to the introduction of vaccines, so much so that one small seemingly eclectic group got Sputnik 5 and another and the rest are supposed to be exposed to something else, of course people would have been concerned as to what is the difference such that a so seemingly eclectic group could have gotten Sputnik 5 and everybody else take this other thing. Because you messed up in the messaging with regard to the challenges being raised at a scientific level in certain parts of the world regarding any relationship between the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood clots. Because you messed up is no reason to try to impose on people, a vaccination as a prerequisite to getting into a shelter on the evening of an evacuation brought on by an explosive eruption of La Soufrière volcano. But we have to understand how politicians behave, how politicians think. They are by and large mostly opportunistic. That's what some of them were trying to do on that evening. Be just a politician, be opportunistic. The people at their wits' end trying to get away from a volcanic eruption. They're standing up and telling them, this is not a drill. You have to get vaccinated to get in. That is the way we operate. But it is interesting to hear how these same poor people are characterized by politicians. But we've been there before. And it is time that poor people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines understand that they are only really important to politicians when their votes are needed. You see them more than ever when the votes are needed. Beyond that, it's their turn to profile, their time to pump the set. But it is what it is. We want to deal, dear friends, with a segment that we call Gonzalez versus Cummins. The Gonzalez versus the Cummins. In every country where there are democratic elections, it is understood that the ruling party won the elections based on the dynamics of the voting system. But it is also popular in democratic countries to place emphasis on which party earned the majority of the votes cast, the total number of votes cast. That is important. And you know it is important in St. Vincent and the Grenadines because in the 1998 elections, Vincent Beach and the ULP at the time went to town to say that it doesn't matter that we use the first past the post system, which is our approach to electioneering. That the New Democratic Party won one more seat than the ULP in the elections and therefore got the right to form government. Vincent Beach and the ULP at the time went to town on the fact that they got the majority at the polls. And somehow they translated that into meaning politically that they should be in charge of the country. They know what the Constitution said, you know, but that was the line of argument. And Vincent Beach, as leader of the ULP at the time, went so far as to suggest that the party will make the country ungovernable. In other words, in a democratic society, the Unity Labour Party leadership attempted to suggest to the Vincentian electorate that even though under our constitution, the New Democratic Party legitimately won the elections, because the overall number of votes cast were in our favor, that should suddenly transcend the norms of our electoral system. And because that thinking was not accepted, then there was a commitment to make this country ungovernable. Fast forward to Gonzalez's response to anybody that sought to talk about taking to the streets or anything as a result of election results or what have you. Witness his response to Friday in Parliament. So much so that Friday had to tell him, sit down. You're a bad boy or what? Sit down. Never had that before in his life. Somebody else telling him, sit down. You feel you're a bad boy or what? Shock him. Because he realized that Friday was not allowing himself to be bullied. So the situation is that it was all right to do bullying in 1998, albeit it was Beach doing the talking. But Gonzalez never said anything to pull back Beach or pull back the ULP's advocacy that the country should be rendered ungovernable because they didn't get what they thought they should have gotten by virtue of having the majority of the total votes cast. Now that the shoe is on the other foot, and he just made mention of that in another thing that we will deal with in a while. Now that the shoe is on the other foot, he's not comfortable, and he cannot be, because he must be mindful of what his party was thinking and enunciating publicly in 1998. And he must be mindful of what was rendered possible in 2000, April, May 2000, with the street protests. And from which he benefited. Do so and like so, the old people say. Do so and like so. But you know, Gonzalez's popularity has been waning. It's actually been waning for a very long time. And Just Another Look has long suggested that it was waning since 2004. Remember when we had the Meet the People talk, when there were no people to meet? And then they translated it into a meet, the school tour, and then the school, some of the school children didn't want to meet. Remember the incident in Calico? At the Calico Anglican School? So, we've been there before. So his popularity has been waning. But every now and again you get a sense that there's a deliberate effort made to recoup some ground, some lost ground. And that's the context in which we deal with this Gonzalez versus Cummins issue. The Gonzalez's versus the Cummins. Because yes, the electorate, regardless of what they think of you, are always concerned about the well-being of the leadership of the country. They want to know when you're sick because they want to empathize and they want to help and they want to pray for you. And that extends to your family, particularly your wife or your husband, depending on which it is. So of course the nation was worried about Gonzalez and his announcement of LOEs, etc., etc. But you notice it's come up again about being pulled hither and thither because he has to make decisions relative to his commitment to the leadership of this country versus his commitment to his wife, his life partner. And all of that is good. And we understand it. But while this discussion has emerged in the recent past about being pulled in different directions, nothing is being said about any concern being shown by Prime Minister Gonzalez for Daniel Cummins. And we raise that because just as Gonzalez's wife has had to undergo surgery on her back, and there's concern for the implications on her spine and whether or not she'll be able to walk and so on and so on. That's the same situation in which Daniel Cummins finds himself. But there's a fundamental difference. The injury to Gonzalez's wife has to do with a condition that has developed, not one that has been forced upon her. The injury to Daniel Cummins is a direct result of the actions of some people in Parliament on that fateful day when police officers held him and swung him down the steps of the Parliament building. The injury resulted from that fall. He didn't fall on his own. He was flung down the steps of our Parliament building. The injury to Cummins took place in Parliament with all parliamentarians present. The Speaker of the House could have stayed the hands of the police officers. It's one thing to call in the police to move parliamentarians from the chamber under the orders or the rules of the House. It is another thing altogether to sit there and watch the police officers treat parliamentarians in a democratic society in the manner in which they did the NDP parliamentarians. That the Speaker of the House said nothing to stay the hand and the conduct of the police officers. That the Prime Minister, as head of government business in Parliament, said nothing to stay their hands. That not a single member of Parliament on the government side found it within his or her conscience his or her religious faith to say anything to stop what was happening in the manner in which it was being done remains a stigma on our nation's parliament and a stigma on every one of them that kept their mouths shut at the time. It is the reason why none of them now want to say anything about Daniel Cummins and his operation. But they will all be anxious to speak about the Prime Minister's wife and her operation. And they're concerned for her because she's the wife of the Prime Minister. Daniel Cummins also has a wife. How is she supposed to feel about the way her husband was treated and the injury that he sustained when they flung him down the steps of our parliament building? We don't like fairness. We are being asked to be concerned about the Prime Minister's wife, but we're not extending our faith and our religiosity to concern for Cummins and his wife, because she has to deal with the trauma of a husband that was flung down while doing the people's business in Parliament. Flung down in a democratic society. Those things you see in dictatorship countries. We have lived to see it in a democratic country called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. None of the leftovers and the ruminants of the left have been able to take this matter and address it for what it is. The Christian Council had not addressed this situation. Or several preachers, pastors, and religious leaders around the country have stilled their tongues in respect of this travesty. You see, dear friends, one expects that as a husband, Ralph Gonzalez will be constantly expressing concern for his wife's well-being. As a wife, we expect Daniel Cummins' wife to be constantly expressing concern for her husband's well-being. But we have to understand that this is the same Ralph Gonzalez who has become proficient at quoting scripture and referencing God, yet who sat there and did nothing to stay the actions of the police on that fateful day in Parliament. We can understand now why in the middle of the party's gospel / electioneering / festival on the E.P. Joshua Airport trip in the lead up to the elections, while the singer doing his presentation of praise to the Almighty had to stop because Gonzalez reached. Who then was more important, God or Gonzalez? Who then was more important? Our religious leaders talk about faith. They say nothing about that. The Christian Council said nothing about that. It was a gentle soul, a Christian, who felt compelled to pen a piece that was carried in Eyewitness News about this seeming travesty and the contradiction and the perception really that all the party appeared to be doing was to prey on people's faith, on people's religiosity. But the fact that the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines have still their tongues on this travesty also raises significant questions about their own faith. This is the same Raul Gonzalez who has seemingly refrained from allowing himself to express any sort of remorse for Cummins and his medical condition, occasioned by having been flung down the steps of our parliament by police officers. While we do not approve it, that kind of behavior by police officers are often associated with common criminals who are objecting to the way they are being treated. So we transformed Cummins into a common criminal, just like we transformed all of the opposition members who simply stood their ground. They didn't say anything. The then leader of the opposition, Arnie Mustis, simply stood up. He said nothing. He was ordered to sit and he refused. And eventually, the entire opposition benches saw their members, the occupants, stand up alongside their leader. They said nothing. And yet they were transformed by treatment into common criminals. But that is how our governance works. That we can unleash our police on parliamentarians because they protested by saying nothing. Mahatma Gandhi was a specialist at that. And he is today an international hero. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you laugh them to scorn. You fling them down the steps, push them out. And then what? This is the same Gonzalez who has seemingly refrained from allowing himself to express any sort of remorse for Cummins and his surgery. This is the same Gonzalez who has apparently not been able to, quote-unquote, shed a tear, crocodile or otherwise, at the damage wrought on Daniel Cummins, knowing the possibility of being crippled should something go wrong with his surgery, just as is the situation, the precarious nature of his wife's own operation. The empathy does not extend beyond his commitment to his wife, even though their surgeries were equally precarious. The old people constantly remind us, dear friends, God don't sleep. God don't sleep. You know, just another look wishes Eloise Gonzalez well. And I'm sure the majority of Vincentians are of that view as well. We pray for her. We pray for successful operation. We pray for her recovery. But because we are brought up in a Christian tradition and we understand what is happening around us, we pray for Daniel Cummins' recovery. We pray for Daniel Cummins and we pray for his wife and her guidance. And because we are of a religious nature, we pray for Ralph Gonzalez. And we pray that somehow he may be moved by the same God that he so often quotes and refers to understand the importance of not merely being able to proficiently quote scripture. We pray that he may come to a stage where he could publicly articulate an apology for what the police had done to Cummins on that fateful day. We pray that he may learn to seek forgiveness from that same God he quotes so often for his own failure on that fateful day to step in, as any good Christian would and should have done, to stay the hands of the police. Yes, dear friends, dear listeners. Let us as a collective people pray for Ralph Gonzalez, that he may come to an understanding that power is temporary, power is transient, God is eternal. In the land of the blind, the old people say, the one-eyed man is king. For the past 20 years of ULP government, critical analysis may well have told us that those 20 years constitute a verification of what the old people say. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. It's a verification. Because we have, over those last 20 years, experienced so many things that hurt us to the core. Yet, which those in control seem to scoff at, because they hold in their hands the mantle of power. Remember how Glenn Jackson used to throw it out? We are in power, he used to say. We are in power. When the leader of a country can find it within himself to refer to people as unschooled and untutored, malignant, dishonest, minority wrong, you know the whole tralala. A slew of derogatory terms. And find it possible thereafter to put a political spin on it. We must understand without a doubt the critical importance of the intent of the old people saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. In official terms, we are not described or defined as a dictatorship. But you ask yourselves, what is the reality? When a leader can make fun, or so it seems, about who George Bush would recognize in the middle of the night if the fellas were sitting together on the bridge. And of course, the fellas were of different coloration. Then we can understand, whatever political spin may be put on it, we can understand the significance of the old people saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. When the man who would be king could call in on a radio station, nation listening, and declare that if he were on St. Vincent and had his firearm with him, what he would have done to Brian Paper Alexander. And nobody on the government side, nobody in police, not a single lawyer, not a single religious leader got up and said there was something fundamentally wrong with that, and that it ought to be fully investigated. But we can still find time to put a political spin on it, then we know for sure what it means when the old people say, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Vincentians have grown accustomed to this sort of behavior. We have heard of the incidents and political spin related to the middle finger. We got another political spin on the pokey hole reference. We have had Bassey Alexander referred to as a dirty, stinking dog. That's where we reach, you know. That's where we reach. Over the past 20 years, Vincentians have largely sat idly by and accepted one despicable castigation and characterization after another, one political spin after another. And when deemed appropriate, we claim that silence is dignified. We justify our silence. We justify our silence. Remember, you know, on the Yogi Farrell matter, we were told, this is Eyewitness News quoting Ralph Gonzalez, but what they want is their mayhem to be added to. But at the appropriate time, I will have things to say. I don't bother on foolishness. And at the appropriate time, I would talk about certain things. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. It is about I being in charge. It is about I will determine when. At the appropriate time, I would talk about certain things. Eyewitness News told us the Prime Minister reiterated that he had expressed his concern about Farrell. But he ended up saying, quote, clearly, the persons who have been wronged are Karen, which is Camilo's wife, her 7-year-old daughter, and Camilo. The persons who have been wronged are Karen, her 7-year-old daughter, and Camilo. And they didn't do anything wrong. They have been wronged. End of quote. Was Yogi Farrell wronged in any way? They tried to make a case against Yogi Farrell. What happened to that case again? It's done, it's squashed, smashed up. Yeah? Nothing come out of it for your son and his family. But for Yogi Farrell, what came out of it? First, a senior magistrate asked her to plead, then say she's not good enough, fit enough to plead. Then you send her to our local Red Roof Inn, the mental home. Yeah? And you have her going back and forth between there and court. But no mention of her being wronged. No mention of her being wronged. Who are wronged? Karen, Camilo's wife, her 7-year-old daughter, and Camilo. They were wrong, and they didn't do anything wrong. Was Camilo with Yugi? Because if Camilo was with Yugi at any point in time, then part of the wronging of Karen and the 7-year-old daughter came from Camilo. Isn't that fair? Isn't that a fair assessment? So when you throw Camilo in the mix of not having done anything wrong, it could only be in a specific segment of the whole episode that you're dealing with. But you said that at the appropriate time I will talk about certain things. Well, Dr. Christina Hines, a lecturer at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, she came out and she protested along with another university lecturer when you went to speak at Cave Hill campus. And then she put pen to paper and wrote, and we quote, "I felt moved to act when I saw an advertisement for this lecture on 21st February 2018. I felt uneasy about yet another lecture being delivered at the Cave Hill campus by Dr. Gonzalez. I felt uneasy about yet another lecture being delivered at the Cave Hill campus by Dr. Gonzalez. This forum would serve once again to affirm this leader's significance to the region. I questioned whether we should sit quietly by and listen to one of the region's leaders provide learned perspectives when allegations of sexual assault and rape have been leveled against him over the last decade. The university lecturer, doctor just like him. She goes on, quote, "Now, Dr. Gonzalez has never been found guilty of any of these accusations, nor has he been tried for them in a court of law. So it is unfair, I have been told, to treat an innocent man as guilty." That is true. There are many people who have been wrongly accused and wrongly imprisoned. However, allegations of rape and sexual assault are not peripheral issues to be set to one side. These are serious violations that must be treated as such, whether raised against ordinary people or against so-called political giants. End of quote. So she protested during the lecture and was removed from the lecture. But she wasn't thrown down any steps. Of course, the comments by the goodly doctor here, Christina Hans, didn't appear to have had any impact. Old people will say it's like water off a duck's back. We can go on listing instances of issues that really should have been addressed by the Vincentian public. But the more you listen and the more you reflect, is the more you are drawn to making a comparison between one Donald Trump and Ralph Gonzalez. Remember the quotation that has often been used about Gonzalez? I may lie about certain things. Remember how many times you heard that take place? But he's never really told the Vincentian public as to when he lies and what he lies about. But I may lie about certain things. The most recent example of Gonzalez's mode of operation is the recent issue in which a man claims to have been shot in the presence of a government senator. And certainly we are hearing about the involvement of another government official. Things have become more and more into the public domain. The matter is still being investigated, even as time is passing, not standing still. But the investigation is ongoing. In this past week, Gonzalez, who doesn't like to talk about anything, so speaks at quote-unquote the appropriate time, is quoted as saying, "How does anyone expect the Prime Minister to make a public comment about allegations made by someone in relation to someone else, which is a subject of a police investigation?" I just want to ask that simple question, as Gonzalez quoted. And so from the foregoing, one could easily have concluded that that's it. He asked any question, but of course, nobody really is expected to answer. So, that's it. But not Gonzalez. Gonzalez is who he is. And so, Eyewitness News quotes. And I want to ask the second question. Why do you take the allegations of one person as being truth, and people running with it and talking about it as though it is the unvarnished truth and the unvarnished facts? End of quote. So just another look asked, is he speaking about the same matter? And if so, why? Why does anyone expect the Prime Minister to make a public comment about allegations like this? But he apparently couldn't help himself, so he said it was under investigation. But then he goes on to ask the second question. But Gonzalez is who he is. And so he continues, and he's quoted in Eyewitness News, "I hope for their sake they don't run into problems with the law of defamation." Why do people think that everything has to be hung out to dry in the public place when an investigation is going on? It's Gonzalez. Eyewitness News for 8 parts stated, he said that the important thing is that the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Office of the Commissioner of Police, now quoting Gonzalez, I am sure will work properly and independently in the highest traditions in this matter. I have spoken to Senator Morgan. When the incident occurred, you'd expect that she would call and she would tell me. And what I have read in the newspapers and heard persons talk about, without going into any details, that from what I was told, people just keep their mouths shut a bit. End of quote. Oh wow. He could talk, but everybody else must shut up. The one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind. From what I have read in the newspapers and heard persons talk about, without going into any details, that from what I was told, people just keep their mouths shut a bit. Eyewitness News quote Gonzalez again saying, quote, just keep your mouth shut a bit and don't believe and accept as fact some of the more outlandish things that you have heard in relation to Senator Morgan. I just want to say this politics is a hell of a thing. Partisan politics is a hell of a thing. End of quote. Hello there. Hello there. Now we're hearing that partisan politics is a hell of a thing. When Gonzalez found that out? When Gonzalez found that out? But there is an assumption here, isn't it? That this thing has to do with politics. What he has heard, etc., he's advising that people just keep their mouths shut a bit. And then he reiterated, just keep your mouth shut a bit and don't believe and accept as fact some of the more outlandish things that you have heard in relation to Senator Morgan. Why would that come your business? If you say it's under investigation, it is under investigation. Why you are concerned about people talking about the more outlandish thing? You already say that you hope they don't run into problems with the law of defamation. Well, leave it there. Leave it there. But the way in which this is put seems to suggest that you are already considering some of the things that they are saying. Yeah? Don't believe and accept as fact some of the more outlandish things that you have heard in relation to Senator Morgan. Who gave you that right to tell anybody that? Why don't you just apply the same principle? Just keep your mouth shut a bit. Why don't you take that advice? You want to advise the nation. Given all your years of legal training and legal practice, you telling people just keep your mouth shut a bit, but you are not keeping your mouth shut a bit. That makes any sense? Because you are telling them, don't believe and accept as fact some of the more outlandish things that you have heard in relation to sex. That is not your call. The investigation. Suppose the investigation now yields that those outlandish things that were said prove to be correct. Would you come back and apologize? Up to now you apologize to Daniel Cummins for sitting down there and watch the people fling him down the step. You know that he was injured. You know that he had to try to, the doctor recommended a special chair. You still ain't deal with that. But you love everybody, you know. And you quote the scripture every Monday morning or every day. It's another way of saying almost every day. So you could advise Vincentian to shut up a bit. And you hope that they run into the problems with the law with regard to defamation. And that's what Gonzalez has become, unfortunately. That is what he has become. he can advise Vincentian to shut up a bit because he says so. Because he says so. Remember, you were often reminded about the laws about making Vincentian panic. That caused just another look to say, remember the captain of the ship in the movie. Don't panic until I give the order to panic. And when the depth charge is the best, they say, prepare to panic. And when he got the other depth charge, he said, panic. But it was too late. So here is the Prime Minister. Here is the Prime Minister. Journalist in chief. Telling you, shut up a bit. But he not necessarily shutting up, but you must shut up. Just keep your mouth shut a bit and don't believe and accept as fact some of the more outlandish things that you have heard in relation to Senator Morgan. Gonzales should explain to the Vincentian public why he kept his mouth shut when the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center knew about a number of activities at the La Soufrière volcano on the 16th of November 2020. Gonzales should explain to the Vincentian public why he remained silent, why he kept his mouth shut when Mama Soufrière recorded at least 8 shakes on the 23rd of December 2020. That information was not fed to the Vincentian, just as the information on the 16th of November was not fed to the nation. Gonzales should explain to the nation why he remained silent when NASA advised the UE Seismic Research Center that it had observed a hotspot in the crater of the Soufrière volcano on the 27th of December 2020. Gonzales should explain to the Vincentian public why he remained silent when the UE Seismic Research Center arranged with NEMO, according to Dr. Robertson, arranged with NEMO for a physical investigation of the volcano to be undertaken subsequent to the information received from NASA about a hotspot in the crater of the La Soufrière volcano on the 27th. Gonzales should explain to the Vincentian public why he remained silent when, following the UE Seismic Research Center's arrangement with NEMO for a physical investigation of the volcano following the NASA report on the 27th of December, it took another 2 days before such a visit took place, and following which a hastily put together one of his press organs was called in mid-afternoon, seemingly expressing surprise that the volcano was already engaged in effusive eruption. That's what you should explain. Explain why you kept silence then. Now you want to tell people to keep their mouth shut a bit. But clearly, when the people needed to hear from you, you kept your mouth shut a bit. Or are you going to tell us politically now that you didn't know of the shakes of the 16th of November 2020? You did not know of the 8 shakes on the 23rd of December 2020? You didn't know of the NASA report that occasioned having the Seismic Research Center called NEMO? You did not know? What else you not know? What else you not know? What are you going to tell us? You see, silent on all the above mentioned, Gonzalez seemingly sought to recoup lost ground with the introduction of the Gonzalez-Robertson Daily Show. And that was milked and milked to the end, to the bitter end. But interestingly, on this recent case involving the senator and whoever else, here the Commissioner of Police, quoted in Eyewitness News, quote, "Well, I can't account for what people say. I know what police do. We usually investigate matters fairly. So most of the persons who are expressing an opinion, from what I heard, they have political motives. So it is not that I expect anything different from them." Wow, that's a police commissioner. A police commissioner investigating a matter. This is his comment. So most of the persons who are expressing an opinion, from what I heard, they have political motives. So it is not that I expect anything different from them. So he knows that these people have political motives. Wow. What occasioned that? What occasioned that? What occasioned that? And you're forced to ask the question, is there a mindset in government circles that once the issues raised in the public domain that are not in sync with what you want to hear, that they have political motives? Is that it? And therefore, their comments are of no consequence. Hence, they should, like the Prime Minister said, just shut your mouth a bit. Yeah? Just shut your mouth a bit. Because they seem to know what everybody is thinking and why everybody should be just following them. Shut your mouth a bit. But that is what we have become in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What political system do you have in place? Clearly, people are jostling for position so that they can be more aligned with the ruling regime because, as they know, it was said at their own convention, we ought to own the jobs too. That is where they are. That is what they think is important. But here we are in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, seeing for ourselves what has transpired in the aftermath of the volcanic eruption. We have seen, and we see each day, what has happened with regard to the response of Nemo and how people are taking it. If your own people living among you and experiencing life in this country daily cannot vent their opinions on what they see, but they must wait on you to tell them, and then they must repeat like you. You're not living in anybody's backyard. You're not living in anybody's backyard, and we certainly ain't living on anybody's plantation. And there is a right to apply your own critical thinking skills. More people got information about what was taking place up at La Soufrière from people who went up on their own and sent things on social media. People learned about Soufrière before your press huggings of the mid-afternoon of the 29th of December. I saw people got a lot of things. The people said that Yugi Farrell was wronged. The court, what did the court do to you? Apart from embarrassing her, tried to make everybody believe that something was wrong with her mentally. That's why she ended up in the mental hospital. Your concern was that your family was wrong. Just Anotherlook is saying to you, if Camilo Gonzalez had a relationship with Yuki family, then he is partly responsible for the wronging of his own family. You can't just give people the section of the truth you want them to have, you know. It's either you're exposing the whole matter and you want to discuss the whole matter, or you don't. But you can't take out this little piece and try to make it feel as though, well, hello. And that's the same thing. People are asking now for accountability from name. But they're not likely to get it. They ask for accountability for the Argyle International Airport. They still ain't get it. They ask for accountability with the Life to Live project. They still ain't get it. But they will keep asking. Because they will not accept what appears now to be the new mantra. Just keep your mouth shut a bit. Others could talk, but not you, the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Just keep your mouth shut a bit. Enough said. Today, dear friends, is Saturday. It is the 8th day of May, 2021. This marks 5,237 days since the disappearance of FDG Air J8VAX. Disappeared on Sunday, the 19th of November 2006, piloted by Dominic Gonzalez with Rashid Ibrahim on board. Ibrahim was not considered a bona fide passenger because the flight that he was supposed to be on was late and he took a ride with Dominic. So his parents got nothing by way of compensation. Today, the 8th May 2021 marks 3,927 days since the disappearance of another SDG Air aircraft, J8SXY. It disappeared on Thursday, the 5th of August 2010, bound for Canada, piloted by Suresh Lakra. We're yet to see a report of any sort on the disappearance of this aircraft. And finally, as always, we remind you that it was on the 19th of September 2008 that Patricia Bowman, on a rainy day, hustling to go to work, as she reached just before she turned into Kanash, where she was, the debris from the wall of the building to her left collapsed, and she was crushed to death. You know, this particular case of Patricia Bowman, it's painful to have to address it every week. But it sends a reminder to us who pride ourselves as being members of a Christian community of what constitutes Christianity. Is it about feeling good about ourselves? Or is it about seeing God in others? We keep this here because we believe that this society is facing a major challenge. Because on the one hand, we seem to be anxious to suggest that we are willing to be our brother's keeper. But then the almighty dollar becomes so important that we're not anxious to run to the assistance of others unless we believe that there's something in it for us. And that's why sometimes it's so painful to see people rushing to the media for a picture to be there that I gave a contribution of this and I gave a contribution of that. That seems more important than the actual contribution. You don't want to impute motives for people, but it leaves you wondering at the end of the day, what is it all about? And the case of Patricia Bowman is one that should challenge us. So when we see something that is wrong, what do we do? Do we listen and do as we have been advised in the case of the Senator Morgan matter? How did the matter come about Senator Morgan in the first place? Isn't it about Mr. John who got shot? But we are being told to shut your mouth a bit. Shut up a bit. Is that what we've done in these cases? We've shut up about the Patricia Bowman issue. Nothing. You've been listening to another issue, Night Radio's Callaloo presentation, Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative, and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Night Radio. First aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. with repeat broadcasts at 9 p.m. on Sundays. But you can always catch us on the World Wide Web, www.nightradio.info. You can always find us on Facebook and YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph.
Great news! Plus is now rolling out internet and TV services, mixing future and distinct internet and grenades. Yes, better service and better prices from the new and improved Spectre Plus TV plans for $59.99 per month. That included adult TV 3 channels plus $29.99. For more information, call 1784-534-2551 or 1784-532-2501. Fast, reliable broadband and television services for your home or business. Spectre Plus TV Internet better. Looking for a place to relax with natural cool breeze and friendly surroundings? Then check the Bay Hill Tree Bar, located at Bay Hill Cane Garden. We have everything a bar will have. We also sell Shell 20 pounds cooking gas at the Bay Hill Tree Bar.
St. Vincent, my homeland.
On April the 9th, 2021, La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines violently erupted, and the words of Black Stallion came flowing through.
So our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, we have one little thing that I want you always remember.
My name is Jim Lewis, President of St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association, Toronto, Inc., and I encourage you to donate generously.
I love you, St. Vincent, me sweet little island, St.
Ship your barrels and household effects to St. Vincent and the Grenadines with SVG Direct. Jumbo barrels $70, medium $60, and small $50. We ship anything, name it, we ship it. Vehicles and more. Local agent, Adams Customs and Shipping Agency. 3rd floor, Baines Building, Kingstown, SVG. Telephone 1784-458-1328. In Canada, contact Michael 647-569-3285. Jambi 647-657-7362. Remember, it's free pickup at your convenience 7 days per week anywhere in the Greater Toronto Area with SVG Direct. We at BayHillNews.net are doing our part in helping fans and followers of our network. For example, we went up to Sandy Bay and helped with the cleaning of houses inside, outside, and the roofs. We want to do more. We can do more if you help us to help others. Kindly make your donation to Noel and Marvin Thomas at 1-784-496-4805. That's 1-784-496-4805 or Montgomery Cupid at 1-784-529-8340. That's 1-784-529-8340. Thanks for your support.
Now with ice-cold local juices to go with our rich and tasty authentic Vincentian meals made affordable, it's the award-winning Phoenix Kitchen, open 7 days with extended hours on Friday and Saturday. Juices include Marby, lemon lime, passion fruit, bell apple, golden apple, cherry, mango, Marby, linseed, carrot, beetroot, fruit punch, and sea moss. For further information, call 455-1280. That's right, a bigger meal awaits you now with fresh, cold local juices. Phoenix Kitchen. Let the Phoenix arise in you.
www.bayhillnews.net is the parent body of Bay Hill News Network. We do Facebook Live for church service, funeral service, lecture, sporting activity. For more, contact at bayhillnewsnetwork@gmail.com or call 1-784-529-8340.